Live from downtown Vancouver at the Vancouver Film School campus, it's time for EP Live. Okay. Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day. It is awesome to see you on this Friday. What is it, December 13th? What's the date today? December 13th? This is the last EP Live of 2019. Thank you for joining us on this ride here at the VFS Cafe at 390 West Hastings in Vancouver, BC. Thank you for joining us online. Thank you for joining us in the room. We're going to have some fun today. It is, it's awards season, and obviously we're going to be talking about the Video Game Awards that Jeff Keighley put on yesterday. Lots of great stuff in there. But we're also going to be ramping up to the Rocket and Raygun Awards, which kick off next week, and they're going to be running for a nice long time. New content going up every day, talking about the best games of 2019 and the best games of the decade, because it is the end of this decade. So tons of categories, and we still want your videos. Today is the cutoff day, so if you want to get some video clips in there talking about your favorite racing game or your favorite fighting game from 2019 or the decade, send us those videos. You can, I think the easiest way to do it is just put them on Google Drive and then send us the link, or YouTube, send us the link on our Facebook page. You can private message us there. That's facebook.com/electric playground. That's probably the easiest way. Or you can tweet at us, or you can talk about us on the community page of this channel as well. All right, I'll remind you guys a little bit more about that, but we would love to get your video in there if you'd like to do it, or so you can, if you don't want to make a video and you want to just send me some thoughts, I'll read out some stuff as well. But we are starting to get a bunch of them, and it's great to see people from the community sending us some vids. It's going to be a lot of fun to put all these things together. Let's get started with EP Live, though. All right, it's time to talk about our rundown, and today it is dedicated to Amir Jubran, who says, "What an awesome interview." He's talking about the platinum visit that we just had. Really makes me happy to see EP still going strong after all these years. Thank you so much. And to that, this is the 86th episode of EP Live in the VFS Cafe, which kicked off in February of this year. So Blake and I have been cranking, making lots of fun episodes over this year. And it is the end of our 29th season. So season 30 will kick off in 2020. And can't wait to get into what we've got planned with all of you guys for that. All right, let's get started with Amir Jubran's rundown. Here we go. Jeff Keighley's annual Game Awards happened last night, and as always, there were loads of big announcements. The biggest news is that Microsoft unveiled their next-generation Xbox, now called Xbox Series X. It has a rectangular design resembling a tiny computer tower and can be turned on its side and used horizontally. The controller looks basically the same, but is slightly smaller and has a new share button. The best thing is that the Series X will be backwards compatible with all previous Xbox generations at launch and even support cross-generation save files and achievements. As for new games, Microsoft announced Hellblade 2 for the Series X from Ninja Theory, a studio that became a Microsoft subsidiary last year. The new console launches in a year, in holiday 2020, and that was a very exciting reveal. I tweeted at the time, what is December when E3 happens now? Because this was like an E3 announcement that happened in the award show. And that just goes to, it speaks volumes about the size and scale of the video game awards in general. Jeff Keighley has done an unbelievable job at just getting lots and lots of eyeballs around the world on this show. And people tune in for the awards for sure, but I think even more so to have these big exclusive reveals like Hellblade 2. And it's crazy that a console was shown off, but probably a good thing to get ahead of the leaks, which we know will be coming for sure. But also I think PlayStation is probably going to do something around February timeframe. That's what they did with the PlayStation 4. I think we're going to see the PlayStation 5 pretty soon. So in a way, Xbox kind of put their chess piece on the board a little bit sooner. But very interesting that they are honoring, as part of the press announcement, the history of Xbox. And, obviously the inclusion of xCloud is going to be a huge part of it, and the Xbox Game Pass. How many ways are we going to be saying X? But Microsoft is clearly trying to give us portability and value in the archives that we all carry around with us. And I think what the idea is, you'll be able to play whatever you've got within the Xbox ecosystem, and you'll be able to play that stuff anywhere that you want. Very interesting, especially when you consider the news last week about the MLB game going to be coming to the Xbox platform developed by Sony. Very interesting world that we're entering into in 2020. This next decade is going to be crazy for games. Now, loads of other big games were announced during the Game Awards. Fortnite developer Epic Games unveiled a new looter slasher called Godfall, which happens to be one of the first officially confirmed games for the PlayStation 5. That will launch alongside the new console late next year. Nintendo announced 2 new exclusives coming to the Switch. No More Heroes 3 is a full sequel to the original games and promises to be much bigger than the spin-off Travis Strikes Again. Nintendo also has Bravely Default 2, a sequel to the 3DS game RPGs. Both of those are hitting the Switch next year. Finally, one of the most surprising game announcements is The Wolf Among Us 2, a sequel to the episodic adventure from the now-defunct Telltale Games. It's being made by Ad Hoc Studio, a new developer founded by some former members of the Telltale Games team. The Wolf Among Us 2 is their first big project. I loved the first Wolf Among Us. I thought that was amazing. That was, of course, out at a very different time, though, and Telltale kind of flooded the market with all of these branded adventure games with the choose-your-own-adventure kind of path structure. And the effect of these games coming out in such quick succession really started to diminish their impact and ultimately led to the closure of Telltale. So I'm curious to see what is new in the experience with The Wolf Among Us. I loved the first one's art style and the aesthetic and, getting lost in the lore of the game, I think, of the comic. I think it's going to be great to revisit all of that stuff. But I want the gameplay to kind of level up with the new technology that this stuff is going to be playable on, of course. Very good news about No More Heroes 3. I love that franchise, and I was disappointed with Travis Strikes Again. It just felt too slight. But if we're getting a full meal deal from Suda51 and his team, I think this will be a phenomenal game on the Switch. Super stoked about Bravely Default 2 as well. That's a great franchise. Beautiful games on the 3DS, so I expect that the Switch titles will be engrossing and gorgeous and very cool. There weren't any massive, shocker surprises, I think, unveiled, apart from the Xbox Series X reveal there. In terms of software, it felt like relatively safe choices, and I don't know if that's a statement on the fact that we are now going into new architecture, and a lot of the reveals around what is possible and what's going to be potentially playable on PlayStation 5 and the new Xbox. People are kind of holding those cards close to their vest, or that 2020 will be a little bit lighter in terms of software because everybody's just going to be coming to grips with the horsepower that they have. And sometimes developers not only need more time with this stuff, but they also want to wait and see, who's going to come out ahead and who's going to have a slightly bigger install base. Because remember, that first year is a rough one, and a lot of studios, when they bet heavy on one game system or another, and it just doesn't sell tons or they can't manufacture enough, that really impacts the amount of sales that you're going to be able to get off of that game, and that can be brutal, right? The market is already tough enough, let alone trying to sort of guess how many machines are actually going to be able to play your software. I think what's going to be interesting in the next year, and we're going to find out a lot more very soon, is how many games playable at the end of this generation will also run better on the next generation. I expect Cyberpunk 2077 and The Last of Us 2 will be 2 of those games. And the Ghosts of Tsushima, which had an epic reveal. Oh my God, I can't wait for that game as well. Yeah, lots of good stuff. It was a good award presentation for sure. The one thing that I would say about the awards, because I guess this is my time to talk about it, is that I'm hopeful that we get to a point with the awards where it's not so much endemic advertising tied to the honoring of the work, because as exciting as it is to be hyped for what's coming, this show should also, if it's really truly going to be a Golden Globes or Oscars type of event for the game industry, it really needs to, I think, slow the pace down a little bit and really applaud the work that's happening there. And still, it's great, and great strides get made every year, but also there's that the celebrity involvement and stuff like that, which is exciting, but it also feels like it's a contractual thing, as opposed to, oh my God, I got to be at the Game Awards and I got to be there. And so many of the ads that we go through from the premiere exclusive trailer, from the trailers, and also then we cut to an ad and it's about a new game that's coming out. It just feels like everything is so marketing, promotional driven. And I think the awards will, I guess these notes are for Keeley, but I think that the awards cross over into a new level when it's not so much endemic advertising. Honestly, some of the spots that excited me the most were the "Do you want to stop vaping?" ads, which got a little too. There were too many of them, but it was like, yes, this is like community service type stuff, but it's also like it's not specific to this crowd and specifically selling something. It just got weird that we had an ad and then we had a trailer and then we had the person that was tied to the launch of this trailer was up on stage. I know how the business works and the mechanics work around all of this stuff, and putting on a show like that is not cheap. But I think it'll be great when the awards are just a thing that everybody wants to go to and participate in, and it doesn't feel so tied to deals. So my only quibble there. But there were tons of great awards that were given out at the Game Awards. The Game of the Year went to Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, and it's a fantastic pick. It's a great game. I think it's a little tough for the average player to rally around, and it's like the sort of cross the full spectrum kind of game, but it was fun, and it's definitely a good choice. Best game direction was Death Stranding. Kojima won that award, which I think there was an element of predictability in there. I like this category, though. I think this is great that game direction is singled out there. It's a little weird that more, slivers and more sort of content creators specific to game development aren't also singled out. But this is a good step in the right direction. And honestly, Kojima's ambition earned him this title for sure, and earned him this award for sure. Best narrative to Disco Elysium. I'm going to be talking a little bit about that game in a bit here. That was awesome, and it was great to see that team up on stage. And best art direction for Control. I think they're right on the money with that as well. Some really good games, really nice night, and kudos to everybody involved with getting the Game Awards up and running and excelling and improving every single year. Some very fun stuff. Now, let's talk about movies for a second. Over in theaters, choosing between the red pill and the blue pill isn't as hard as choosing between John Wick and Neo. Warner Brothers has announced that the upcoming Matrix sequel starring Keanu Reeves will hit theaters on May 21st, 2021. The problem is that this is the date that is already occupied by another upcoming Keanu movie, John Wick Chapter 4. A double dose of Keanu might sound like fun, but it could actually be a bad thing, with both films competing for the same audience and hurting their box office returns. Now, before you get your spoon all bent out of shape, one of those movies will almost certainly shift release dates before they arrive. Shooting on both begins soon. Man, I hope Keanu Reeves has taken very good care of his body. He's putting lots of icy packs on and making sure that he doesn't break anything or, hurt himself in any way. He's going to be doing so much action in both of these movies. I can't wait. We all can agree, right? He's breathtaking. And I'm psyched to see what everybody concocts for these new sequels. He's just a lovable dude, and he makes cool movies, and he's fun to watch on screen. So sign me up. Even if they come out on the same day, I'll see them both on the same day. It's going to happen. But likely that won't happen. All right, you guys, that is our rundown. Thank you for watching. Now let's take a look back at this day and everything cool. Welcome to This Day and Everything Cool for December 13th. On this day in 2002, one of Nintendo's biggest franchises set sail into new territory. The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker launched on the GameCube in Japan, with a Western release following a few months later. It was the first game in the series to use the new cel-shaded graphical style, which made the game look more cartoonish than predecessors like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Some fans were disappointed with the change, saying it looked too childish, while others loved it, saying that it resembled animated movies from companies like Disney and Studio Ghibli. It also made the environments and characters feel more unique and distinct from the other Zelda games, and that was the idea. Wind Waker started development using a more realistic style, but director Eiji Aonuma and the rest of the development team felt that it was too derivative, prompting them to explore other designs. They also went in a new direction with the story and setting. Franchise hero Link journeys to a new location, a group of islands scattered across a vast sea with new ship mechanics to master and strange new creatures to meet. Wind Waker became a massive hit both critically and commercially and is still one of the most highly regarded games in the entire franchise. Since then, the Zelda series has bounced back and forth between realistic visuals and cel-shaded visuals, with the 2017 game Breath of the Wild being sort of a combination between the two. An HD remake of Wind Waker sailed onto the Wii U in 2013. All right, so it's always good to see Zelda in our This Day and Everything Cool, right? This is the last show before we go into the Rocket and Raygun Awards, so it's been a mad scramble to try to get my my hands and my eyeballs onto as many games as possible so that we can acknowledge the right games with the nominees and award the right winners. And so today we're going to be talking about some stuff that some VR stuff and some games that I had a little bit of playtime on, and then also talk a little bit about what the plan is for next week. But one of the games that I put the Oculus Rift on and got some time with is the third chapter of the Vader Immortal series. Take a look.
See if you can activate that control panel right in front of you. Press the buttons next to the arrows. Ah! Well, look at it this way. One less TIE fighter to worry about.
Last night I got to jump in and play through episode 3 of Vader Immortal. This is the partnership between ILM X Lab and Lucasfilm and Oculus. It's a VR experience. What's crazy about this episodic experience is that I played the first one on the Oculus Quest, the second one on the Oculus Rift, and I've played this third episode and the conclusion on the Oculus Rift S.
Nailed them!
And by far, the Rift S is the primo experience. Everything is a lot more solid feeling and looking. The vistas and the visuals, you don't really see the barn door effects and stuff like that you get on the other Oculus experiences. They haven't been shabby on any of these platforms, by the way, but the Rift S is definitely up a notch, and it's another kind of level. It's like a really solid escape into this universe.
Time for one final lesson.
You are trying to defeat Darth Vader in this sort of quasi-game, show. It's weird. It's an experience. It's like a theme park ride. And in this episode, you sort of come into own with your powers and your abilities. You've got force powers and stuff. You're going to be fighting stormtroopers again and a giant AT-ST.
A walker. The Mustafarians won't stand a chance against that.
Some pretty cool sequences, but I got to tell you, I've just come off of playing Jedi Fallen Order, where I was whipping around and throwing things all over the place and jumping and flying and throwing my lights and just doing all kinds of awesome things as a Jedi. So in this, I want to say show. So in this experience, although it's cool, and I thought the first 2 episodes were a little bit more mind-blowing, by this time I kind of know the routine. I know that I'm going to go walk a few steps, I'm going to plant my feet here, I'm going to ricochet some blaster shots from stormtroopers and take them out, or pick up a stormtrooper and hurl them and throw them. And it's fun, but it feels a lot more methodical and a lot more kind of doled out as opposed to the free-form play of something like Jedi Fallen Order. There's some pretty epic scenes and sequences, and it's still a magnificent experience to, come up against Darth Vader and have him raging on you and trying to, kill you with his lightsaber. I thought all that stuff was great, and I thought this ethereal, sort of magic-infused kind of concept for the story was cool. Vader is deliberately trying to steal the life essence of hapless individuals, and you understand why, and it's a nice conclusion, and it also tees up the possibility of more, like, Star Wars always does. And then you also get that lightsaber dojo sequence in there too, where everything is ramped up a little bit and becomes a little bit more tougher. There's definitely an expectation that you've been playing through the dojos and you've got these moves down and you can take out all of the hovering training droids and you can take out all the stormtroopers that are going to come at you and all the stuff that's going to be flying at you. it's fun. It's definitely cool. I wish that Oculus and Lucasfilm had kind of partnered on this stuff a little bit sooner or got it all out in one big package a little bit earlier. I feel like it's a little underwhelming by this third go at it, but in totality, it's a pretty damn cool experience, and it kind of hints at the potential for, a Star Wars partnership like this. And I'm going to say this for the millionth time: where the hell is our VR X-Wing versus TIE Fighter experience? Where is it? Why can't we jump into the cockpit of these amazing Star Wars ships and fly around and get into massive online multiplayer dogfights and stuff? I really, really want that. I mean, Star Wars in VR makes a tremendous amount of sense. Hell, where is our VR Mandalorian game? Honestly, why are we waiting so long for these experiences? This is the franchise tailor-made for awesome VR escapes. And this one's pretty cool.
Toss the thermal detonators.
Attack!
Definitely Vader Immortal is worth checking out if you've got any one of the Oculus systems. You might want to wait until they're all bundled together and sold at a decent sale price. Maybe that's going to happen just after Christmas, just after the launch of Rise of Skywalker.
You lead the way.
But if you're a Star Wars fan and you happen to own any of these VR systems, you should definitely check out Vader Immortal. I'm going to give Episode 3 a 7.5 out of 10. So yes, Vader Immortal is definitely fun and worth checking out. And the one thing that happens when you throw in any VR game is that invariably, because the games generally are not super lengthy and they're more about experience and just tasting the different kinds of mechanics that the developers have crafted for you, you end up jumping from that game into another game and into another game. And that's precisely what happened with me when I played Vader Immortal. I also wanted to kind of get my hands on time with a few other games before we wrapped up for the Rocket and Raygun Awards. And one of the games that was on my playlist last night was released last night. It's from Twisted Pixel, and it's called Path of the Warrior, and it was unveiled at the Game Awards, which was pretty cool. This is a VR kind of variant on Streets of Rage. You actually are punching your way through Rage City, and you encounter a bunch of cartoony bad guys inside of a pool hall or a bar, and then you go into the kitchen and you're on the streets, and you've got all of these different punch and kick mechanic moves, and it was crazy fun. There was a little bit of collision detection issue, and sometimes my arms and punches and kicks would clip right through some of the players, or I'd get too close to them. And there was a repetitive kind of quality to the experience because a lot of it was punching and kicking and punching and kicking. But if you made them get a bit dizzy or got the little birdies spinning around their heads, you could actually grab them and throw them into garbage cans or throw them into jukeboxes or furnaces or whatever. And it's like definitely cartoon enhanced violence, but very much in the vein of the over-the-top Final Fight and Streets of Rage type games, which I love. I've been playing a ton of those old 16-bit style brawlers in my 16-bit superhero segment, so I was really impressed. It's actually a lot of fun and very quirky, and Twisted Pixel has got a nice long history of doing things that are a little subversive, a little avant-garde, a little crazy fun, a little juvenile, but they always make you laugh. They always make you smirk, and definitely Path of the Warrior does that. I haven't played enough that I can give it a full review, but I think it's pretty damn cool. The other game that I tested out a little bit was Defector, which is also made by Twisted Pixel. And in this one, you're playing a spy, and you get into some unbelievable over-the-top antics as well, and there's lots of cool mechanics in there. Some issues with targeting, especially when in the gunplay type sequences where I was trying to aim down the sights, and I just couldn't hit all of the targets that I wanted to. But it's not just about that. It's interacting with the different individuals that are in the game. Everything's been kind of tuned in terms of the dialogue trees and the types of responses that you're going to get. You can try to kind of gauge how to manipulate the person that you're dealing with so that you get what you want as the secret spy. Usually it's information, but there's secrets to uncover, and you could tap your visor. You basically put your finger up to your headset, and then you've got this cool rig on your eyeball. This what are those things called when you put them on your eyeball? Yeah, contact. You've got this contact lens thing that's got this cool technology in it, so you can scan the environment, and it'll tell you where you need to go to find some secret file or something like that, some hideaway safe, and then it goes from this more kind of sneaking and trying to infiltrate and figure out secrets and mysteries within game worlds, and then to these over-the-top action sequences, like I busted out of a plane with a parachute and landed on another plane and climbed up a plane and then got into a firefight. It's pretty rad. It's pretty damn cool and ambitious. Certainly a memorable VR experience. But the one that really took my breath away that I was playing last night and could not believe how simple and fun it was, it's kind of a marriage of Beat Saber and John Wick, with a little bit of the super hot kind of aesthetics, where you're basically being forced down a runway and bad guys are jumping out at you with different weapons, shotguns and handguns and machine guns. They're shooting at you. You can see their bullet trails, but it's all timed to the rhythm. So you got this cool electronic music that's happening, and you're just blasting at bad guys as quickly as you can. Pardon me? Oh, it's called Pistol Whip, which is a perfect name for the game. But you really just feel like such a badass. So you reload by just pointing the guns down at the floor, and then you start off with one, and then you can customize that. You can choose different handguns, and then of course you can get embellish your weaponry and get into some two-handed combat. But it's crazy. You've got bad guys popping up from all over you, all around you. Some of them pop up and they've got all kinds of armor on them that you can chip away at with your bullets. But you feel like you feel like John Wick. You just feel like poo poo poo. And then as you're going down this hallway or this corridor, you're being pushed down the corridor. It's like one of those endless runner type of experiences. You're also avoiding different obstructions that are coming at you. And I got to tell you, the fidelity of the experience, I think mostly because it was just a tuned and simplistic visual style. It wasn't overloaded with detail, but it had enough detail that you got that full-on sensation that you were in a firefight. It was pretty damn flawless. It was really, really fun. Maybe not to the degree of shock that Beat Saber was, because when that game came out, it was like, why haven't we played a game like this in VR before? It was almost like the perfect, killer app for VR. Beat Saber, I'm talking about. So this doesn't have that shock value because it's kind of like iterating on that concept, but it's so slick, and I love this John Wick / James Bond thing. One of the guns that I picked out was a Walther PPK, which, it just felt like the world's best super spy. Pew, 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 as I was shooting all the bad guys. Definitely a pew 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 type of experience. But the other thing that was pretty amazing about, and honestly, I feel like this VR chat is dedicated to VR Grid. That's for you, my friend. The other thing that really made this special is that Oculus has sent me out a Rift S to test out some of the software on. I used the Rift S to play Stormland, which is also an exquisite VR experience. The last one in the partnership between Insomniac and Oculus, wonderful game. But the Rift S is a very special piece of technology. It takes a lot of the tech that's in the Oculus Quest, which is a wireless system, and it's got cameras on the head-mounted display, so you don't have to put any sensors anywhere. You just basically put it on, create your Guardian, and you're good to go. Now you do have a tether with this system that plugs into your computer through the HDMI port and also through the USB port, but that's it. It's got the camera sensors, and it's got a much improved visual resolution, so you don't see any of that sort of barn door kind of effect. It also feels like there's a better field of view within the headset. It's very comfortable. There's no earbuds or anything like that to put on unless you want to. You can plug in your own external headset if you want. All of the audio just comes right out of the headset, and it's sort of aimed at your ears. And it's maybe not as enveloping as having soundproofing, like a soundproofing headset on or something like that. But it still sounds pretty damn cool. But what impresses me the most is the ease to set it up. You just plug it in. The software knows that it's all there, and then it knows that you're creating a Guardian. And if you walk forward, the cameras will actually tell you when you're passing through the threshold, so you won't bash your hand or your head on an object in your game space. and it worked great. And the visual quality and the fidelity of the games was just absolutely breathtaking. So I had a great time, and honestly, my hat's off to Oculus this year, because not only are they making cool hardware, I still think that the best VR hardware, best VR tech to get right now in 2019, especially because of new additions, is the Quest. I haven't had a chance to try out the tethered Quest, because now you can actually play Rift software on the Quest if you plug in a USB-C cable into your computer. I haven't tested that out yet, but I think that's amazing. But the other thing that they just added to the Quest is hand tracking and finger tracking, so you can play video games without any without the touch controllers. You can actually use your fingers, and that update just went out. I don't know what software uses it. I'll be playing some of that stuff over the break, and I'll have some thoughts on that later on. But not only do they have all of this tech, they're obviously investing in some really good games. Defector is Oculus software. The Path of the Warrior is Oculus software. Stormland, Asgard's Wrath, the Darth Vader game. I mean, obviously, Valve has got the Alex game, the Half-Life Alex game, which looks phenomenal. I can't wait to play that. And PlayStation's probably got a bunch of good games up their sleeve for PlayStation 5 at this point. But I don't know. The Oculus isn't resting. They're working hard in lots of different fronts to make VR video game entertainment really fun for us. And I had a great time last night. So those are some of the recent VR titles. Some of them might end up being things that I talk about in the Rocket and Rayguns, so stay tuned for that. And we're going to come back in a second and talk about some of the other games on the traditional flat screen entertainment that I've been playing that we didn't really have time to put full reviews together on, but some of the other games that we should maybe be paying attention to as our year is wrapping up. But right now, we're going to throw to a review of the 6th episode of The Mandalorian. Can we just give Star Wars to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, please? The Mandalorian Episode 6 is available to stream on Disney+, and it is awesome. It is just a fantastic episode. And honestly, if this had been the first episode of the series, all of our brains would have been just splashed all across the galaxy, because this show is absolutely incredible. This episode is about Mando kind of encountering a bunch of other rogues, a bunch of mercenaries that are sent in on a mission to free somebody from an old Imperial prison that has been taken over by the New Republic. There's a ton of action, and there's a ton of characters. Clancy Brown is in this episode. Bill Burr is in this episode. Cool droids and cool Star Wars archetypes. And Mando has to kind of contend with hostility and some pretty cool opponents in this episode. I don't want to spoil too much. It is just wonderful. And we basically see the Mandalorian kind of use every trick in his book and take down New Republic guard droids and other enemies in the show in such cool ways. And they encounter all kinds of, I almost said as if I was playing through this experience, and it's so clear that, you know, the Star Wars games, shows, and movies are all kind of merging into our collective consciousness, because Mando is such an avatar. You know, we never see his face, so there's kind of an imprint, like you put yourself into the character's headspace, and you kind of watch an episode and you kind of almost play through it, which is incredible. Like, I want to start collecting the Star Wars mini action figures again based on this show, which really taps into all my nostalgic love and glow for this franchise. I just cannot believe how heartwarming and awesome and sleek and cool this series can be, and this episode exemplifies that. There's even some incredible cameos from some of the creators in the show. This is my favorite episode of the season, mostly I think because the writing is good. There's great little moments between each of the characters. It's action-packed, and it's so freaking cool. It really is like the manifestation of what we've dreamt a Mandalorian bounty hunter like Boba Fett could do when he's kind of facing other opponents like this. And we've had great moments in the Mandalorian series in the past, like great action moments already, but this one, it felt like the threats were on kind of equal footing, and he just handles himself so well in this show. And it's beautifully shot, and there's great effects and super sleek space sequences as well. It delivers everything in 35 45 minutes, and it's just unbelievable how fast everything flows, how much action is happening, how much interplay and history is kind of hinted at and built up. You know, we're 6 episodes into this thing, and now over the holidays, I just want to watch them all over again as like one big Star Wars awesome movie sequence. You know, I know The Rise of Skywalker is coming, and we're going to see it next week. It's going to have all the budget and tons of actors and lots of secrets and cameos. It's going to wrap everything up, but I don't know if I'm going to like the movie as much as I have been blown away by this Mandalorian TV show. Loved this episode. It's my favorite so far of the show, and this is, I think, my favorite show of 2019. I'm giving this episode a 10 out of 10, and if you haven't jumped into The Mandalorian yet, boy, have you got a fantastic holiday surprise waiting for you. Incredible episode. Yeah, so if you haven't started to watch The Mandalorian, I honestly, I feel like it's, I mean, I hate to say this, but it's kind of worth the price of Disney Plus just on its own. From my perspective, it is. That's the thing that I keep going back to, and I've watched all of these episodes multiple times, and I keep going back to them. But of course, there's tons of other things. I've been digging the Jeff Goldblum show, and you know, it's a trip to be able to watch Star Wars in 4K. You know, and there's tons of animated things. It feels like a tremendous amount of value for the cost of the monthly charge in there. And then, of course, they're going to be loading in all kinds of new surprises for us in 2020 because it's making so much money, and we're all, every huge entertainment behemoth out there is going to the subscription model. But let's talk a little bit about the some of the games that, you know, I don't know how many games I ended up reviewing this year. I think a billion, but there were a few that I didn't get to because time constraints and all that. We just ran out of time. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other games as we're getting into the Rocket and Raygun Awards. And just a reminder, those start next week. We're going to be running separate videos for every single category. So like best fighting game, best racing game, best action adventure, and best Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One. And we're opening it up to people that watch the show. If they want to create a little video with some of your choices for the categories, please do that. You can share it with us on our either on our content page, on the community page on this channel on YouTube right now, or send us a link through Twitter or Facebook. But we'd love to get some video content from you guys and stick it in there. It was a lot of fun last year. That was our first attempt to do something like that, I think, in a bigger way, and we're going even bigger this year. So not only are we doing 2019, though, we're also going to be doing the best of the decade. And so, you know, as we have been prepping and putting the finishing touches on this current season, which is season 29 of Electric Playground, if we you know, do all the sort of counting from the very beginning stages of our show on television in 1997. There were a couple of years there where we had 2 seasons a year. That's why we've ended up with a count larger than the year number. But, you know, as we were prepping the wind down and getting ready for the Rocket and Rayguns, we noticed that there were games that we just didn't have time to hit. And one of them won big at the Game Awards last night, and that was Disco Elysium. And I actually turned it on and checked it out a little bit today and thought it was pretty trippy. Definitely a literate game where there has been a tremendous amount of effort applied to the storytelling and the characterization and the art style. Actually, it looks like you're playing through a painting. So it was incredibly intriguing. I think it won for Best RPG and Best Indie. Like, it won 4 awards. It won very well. It did very well last night. But this game looks really, really cool. It won't, however, because I didn't have time to play enough of it, won't be able to make it into our list of nominees. I hope that some of you may have played this game and love it, or others, and will suggest it, and we'll run a little bit of footage from it. We'll run your reasons why this game is, not to be missed. Another game that I didn't get a chance to get my hands on in a significant way, although we did play it, I think, in a Let's Play and Chat here, and Blake has been playing it on the Switch, is the Untitled Goose Game. And I think the goose showed up with the Muppets at the awards. But it's a cool game. I checked it out on the PC yesterday, and I had a big smile on my face, man. I'm running around trying to steal a farmer's pumpkin and then his radio, and the radio kept squawking and alerting the farmer to come and chase me and grab the radio away from me. And so it's a bit of a stealth kind of experience. It's like your Metal Gear Goose. You're trying not to get seen by all these patrols around you and trying not to be a goofball, but every once in a while you got to let out a honk and scare the person, or pull your wings out and try to like scare them with the scale of your gooseness. And I thought it was pretty damn fun. I think it's a very clever experience. And the thing about the Goose game, and it's interesting because, like I work with the Vancouver Film School on a regular basis with their pitch and play events, which are the end of the year wrap up things that they do here. And I see a lot of these animal themed, quasi open world experiences, and I feel like there's a lot of stuff that gets made here. If the Goose game can become such a big hit out there, there's a lot of stuff that starts here that I think should end up becoming finished and end up in the real world as something that you could purchase. There's a couple of them like that frog game that come to mind immediately. So Goose game was pretty damn cool. There were 2 mech games that came out over the last few months. One of them just shipped, and it's developed by Piranha Games, which is the developer here in Vancouver. It is Mech Warrior 5. Is it Mercenaries? Is the subtitle, I think? Not sure. But it's a giant mech experience, and it's very sim-based. So it's one of these games where you definitely you want to play with a keyboard handy. There is some functionality with a controller, and I had it hooked up on my PC. It's on the PC only right now. I had it hooked up on my controller and plugged into my TV, and I was about to sit back and just get into some mech busting action. But then it's like, nope, you want to go, you speed up to 20% and then 40%, and then you want to outfit the right weaponry here on your shoulder and the right weapon. Like, there's a lot of micromanagement of all the stuff. And in fact, the controller wasn't working perfectly to navigate inside of the hangar. It worked all right when I was as a mech, but as a human inside of the hangar, I had to walk sideways because it really wasn't configured for that. It's definitely a much more of a mouse and keyboard type of experience. But the amount of destruction and the amount of chaos that you can pull off is pretty damn fun. There's a cool sort of leaning towards playing this as a cooperative experience. I know there's a huge community of Mech Warrior fanatics out there. I like giant robot games. I have, fond memories of the mech games that were on the original Xbox that Microsoft published, and the BattleTech stuff that I played over the years. I dug playing that, but I've got to play it a lot more before I can give you guys some real thoughts on it. And the other one was a Nintendo published game that came out in September. What's it called again? Is Deus? Oh, Daemon Ex Machina, or Demon Ex Machina, which is more of an anime-flavored exercise, and it's definitely a lot more accessible and cartoony and more sort of arcadey, but it's equally sim-like. There are a lot of different functions that you're going to have to kind of understand and work with on your controller. Obviously, you're in these giant mechs and battling all kinds of other giant mechs, but there's lots of ground assault vehicles and choppers and things like that you have to take out of the sky. You can loot enemies and outfit and customize your mech in lots of different ways. There's a huge, overly dramatic story that's attached to all of this, with lots of anime characters yelling "No!" But I love all that stuff, and super. And what's funny is I've got this anime-flavored game and also this more kind of simulation-based game, but both of them come heavy with the hard rockin' tunes because it's all about busting buildings and other giant mechs. So there's a couple of really cool experiences right there. And then the other, there's also other indie games, and I wanted to get a review of Monkey Barrels together on the Switch, which is a game that Feelgood made out of Japan. And I have played a good chunk of it, but I don't think I'm quite ready to pop a review out there. We've also done a Let's Play on the show as well. It is a twin-stick shooter for the Nintendo Switch. Feelgood also made the exquisite Yoshi's Crafted World this year, but Monkey Barrels is something that they're self-publishing, and it's getting lost in the Switch eShop You know, that thing is just so cluttered with different titles. Every time I boot that thing up, there's a million new games. And of course, a ton of them are on sale for the holidays. But this is a very fun game, especially for any of you fanatics of twin-stick shooters out there. You play a monkey, and you got to shoot some crab alien-type creatures that are inside of TVs and stuff. And the art is pretty cool. It's definitely all overhead, and a lot of the stuff is pretty micro, so it looks a little bit small when you play it in portable mode, but it looks pretty damn cool when you play it on a big screen. Lots of different functionality and lots of weapons to collect and customize every time that you go out into the battlefield. It's definitely worth checking out. It's called Monkey Barrels. And I'm sure there are other games. You know, somebody just mentioned, Miss Hojat just mentioned Boneworks. I'm sure there's lots of other games that we didn't get to. I welcome all of your input on all of that stuff, especially as you're watching the Rocket and Raygun Award videos next week. But I think we've done a fairly good job at getting to, most of the big games and the best games and the worthy games. So very excited to run those awards and to hear all of your feedback on all of that stuff. But if you haven't checked out a bunch of these titles, you should check out Mech Warrior 5 and Goose Game and Path of the Warrior and Pistol Whip in VR and Defector in VR and a little game called Monkey Barrels for the Nintendo Switch. Okay, you guys, we have about 15 minutes left, and we're going to do a little Let's Play and chat, and you guys can tell me all the games that I shouldn't forget about as we go into the Rocket and Rayguns. You're going to come up. I forgot your name is Corey. Corey's going to come up, and we're going to play a little Star Wars Pinball, which Zen Studios just sent out to us on the Nintendo Switch. There you go. Good to see you, brother.
Likewise.
Nice to see you. Thank you for coming and joining us. Okay, might as well just resume here. Have you ever played any of these Zen pinball games before?
I have not.
Well, they're like traditional pinball experiences, but they have lots of animated bits. Like you see Chewbacca's fixing the... actually, you can't really look at all the animated stuff.
There's a lot going on
Yeah,
here.
there is so much, and you want to look everywhere, but you really just got to focus on hitting the bumpers and hitting the targets and getting the scores. But there's a whole cantina in the background. Han is sitting in his pilot's chair right there. This is just like one of like 20 Star Wars tables. And I wanted to play this for a couple reasons. I've loved these Zen pinball games, and they've done a very good job over the years. You can link this to the Zen account, and you can challenge your friends to all kinds of competitions for high scores and stuff. This is really like classic old, pinball goodness. But they also have thrown in a ton of different types of tables across the whole Star Wars spectrum, all of the classic movies and the prequels and the more recent ones, as well as some of the animated stuff. So it's a pretty good deal if you like pinball and if you like Star Wars. And of course, it's all about Star Wars right now with Rise of Skywalker next week. Watching Victor Lucas's Zen from Blade Blur, that's cool, that's nice. Use the Force Luke, or use the Force Vic, says Chris Dugan. Let's see, I can see a Kinect 3 working in tandem with a VR solution from Microsoft, Sam IM 111. It's interesting how Xbox is really kind of pushing this PC aesthetic with the Series X, but they're holding off on AR or VR with their console, with their platform. They're doing stuff, I think, more on the B2B kind of space, maybe thinking about real estate and things like that. But in terms of games, they've just sort of dabbled. They've just sort of shown off a couple of things. Maybe they're thinking of like Microsoft event spaces or something like that with VR and AR. We'll find out. Let's see what we got here. From Software, make Armored Core great again from Spawn Caliber. Yeah, you guys like the Armored Core games? There's some good ones in that series for sure. Steel Battalion. We started talking about mechs, and all of these classic mech games start coming up. Sam I am talking about Steel Battalion. I see why you're talking about a VR mech experience using sort of Kinect technology, so that you could have all of these different things to touch, but not have to create a whole... Remember when Capcom made that huge controller with all the buttons and widgets and stuff? I have one of those somewhere. It's crazy. Mark Ferrer is asking about that right now. Another mercenaries playground of destruction. Chris Dugan is talking about as I was talking about Mech Warrior 5 there. I haven't heard anything about Mech Warrior 5 Mercenaries yet. I should check it out. It's getting some pretty decent scores. I haven't played enough that I can kind of evaluate it, but I've enjoyed what I've checked out so far. It's cool. Blade Blur has uploaded everything for the videos, so you're going to be seeing some Blade Blur in the Rocket and Rayguns next week, which is great. Jeff Meacham, I can't believe the new Batman game didn't get announced at the Game Awards. Yeah, Jeff, I don't know what's going on with that. We all know something's coming. When is it coming? I think it's probably a PlayStation 5 announcement, right? That's probably what they've done, right? It's such a hugely anticipated title, and DC, I think they have to hit back a little bit because the Marvel with Avengers and the success of Spider-Man. I think DC's thinking, okay, what's the most strategic way that we can get the most buzz on a new Batman game? That'd be great. Comment from Nintendo Boy 17. Sadly, I feel a game like Mercenaries would piss people off, especially when they would be taking notes from Far Cry or Wolfenstein, given recent events in real life. That's an interesting comment for sure. I think today's sensitivities certainly apply to whatever expensive games get made, but that's always been the case. There's always been a shift in what's okay for the marketplace and what are people going to embrace, and sometimes some big risks end up hurting studios. And sometimes it ends up becoming a benefit, like all the violence issues surrounding Mortal Kombat. That helped sell so many copies of that game back in the day. Yeah, but interesting comment for sure, Nintendo Boy 17. Question from JBJ Blaze. It was said the new Xbox would be named after its purpose. What do you think of its official name as announced in the Jeff Keighley's Game Awards? I say it should be Xbox Desktop X. Yeah, they almost could have called it the Xbox Windows machine or something like that. It looks very modular, and it looks like, I don't know. It's we don't really know a whole bunch yet, do we?
No, we just got the name, really.
Yeah.
Just
the look of it. It looks like a PC, but is it a PC? Is it the new is it the new Steam box? Is that the kind of concept there? Yeah, there's so much that we still don't know. They just put the name and the machine out there. And it's called Series. Does that mean that there will be more? Is there a Series Y? Is there a Series Z or Z? I don't know. Of Wolverine Origins, okay. Are the Zen Pinball games on the Switch? I don't know if all the Zen Pinball games are on the Switch, Dave McKee, but this is Zen's Star Wars Pinball game. Let's show them a different table here. Pop into here, and we'll go to exit. I don't think so yet. It would have spoilers in it, anyways. So what do we have? We have a Han Solo table from the Solo movie. The Battle of Mimban. I don't know what that is. What's the Battle of Mimban? Wow, Kurt's wearing a Star Wars shirt, and he doesn't know what this is. There's Last Jedi. What's this one? Rogue One. They've got Clone Wars. I don't know if new ones are coming in. There's a Boba Fett. You want to play?
It looks like there's space for two more. I would imagine there's going to. Sure. Looks like they might have, maybe two more coming in after the release of Rise of Skywalker.
Let's check out the
realm of possibilities.
That would be cool. Let's check out Boba Fett and see what that one looks like.
Is there a Wolf 357 map?
I don't know. Oh, I see. Yeah, I don't know if there's a Star Trek pinball. There's an opportunity for you. Have you ever played the Skyrim pinball? Adrian Leon is asking. No, I haven't. I used to. I was obsessive about these Zen pinball games on the Xbox 360. It tied in nicely with Xbox Live Arcade and the leaderboards and Xbox Live, and so I got into tons of them. And then I ended up playing them on the iPad. The iPad, I think, is still my favorite because you can sort of turn it all vertically, and the aspect ratio just works out perfectly, and the tactility of touching the sides of the iPad just work out great. And that's kind of where I played for a long time. And then you know what happens. You just you have your fill. But when I heard that this was coming to the Switch, I asked for a code because I wanted to check it out, and it's also perfect timing with the new movie coming out. Thoughts on Beat Saber winning Best VR Game when it was nominated and lost last year? Yes, it was weird, and then Green Day was a performer at the awards, and there's a Green Day Beat Saber thing. Yeah, it's an amazing game. It is weird that we have games, even like Fortnite, and there was an award for Best Ongoing Game. It feels like every game is ongoing now, you know? Like with a port to a new system a year later or whatever, it feels like everything kind of blurs from one year to the next because the scale of these enterprises is so massive, and Beat Saber is still as worthy to pick up immediately if you have a VR device today as it was last year. It is weird to kind of, you know, place that calendar year restraint on a lot of these titles because they cross over like crazy. But yeah, it's weird. For sure it's weird. Question, were you disappointed with Jeff Keighley's lack of plaid? From JBJ Blaze, I thought Jeff looked great last night. His suit, he had like a cool tuxedo on. He looked very stylish. I thought he looked great. Question, best gaming year in the past decade? Whoa, Blade Blur. I don't know. I've been thinking about the games as individual entities for the best of the decade, but I haven't been thinking about the best year for gaming in the last decade. I mean, 2017 was pretty rad with the launch of the Switch, you know.
Yeah, that was a great one. The past one's been great, too, with God of War, Spider-Man, all those great
2018 was pretty excellent as well.
2018, sorry.
Yeah. 2019, I think, has been a consistent year of nines. There's been a lot of nines this year, but less, like, blow you away, 10 out of 10, oh my God, never seen that before kind of experiences. That is an awesome question. I think that's one I have to assess. I have to kind of think about. Would love your thoughts on that, though. If you've got comments when you watch the archive of this video, or if you've got thoughts in the chat right now, spill them. Let's hear it. Comment, the Hellblade 2 trailer blew my mind. So freaky and amazing. Yep, beautiful. A lot of pre-rendered stuff, though, for the trailers. A lot of, like Blur Digital was very busy concocting all kinds of visual targets as they create these cool 90-second or 2-minute long video sequences that are amazing reference material for what the actual game artists are working on right now. But presumably the tech of PlayStation 5 and Xbox One X or Series X will get us closer to these visual targets than we've ever been before. I heard in the early stages of Amico's development, the system malfunctioned in Tommy's pants, which left him with an erectile dysfunction. This is Taco Smuggler. Always with the interesting comments, Taco Smuggler. If the Game Awards were actually sanctioned, that they might mean something. Super Bob throwing down the criticisms about the award. You know what? Keeley is listening to all these comments and reading all these comments, so if you have thoughts or suggestions or opinions about the awards, I say tweet at Jeff Keighley and let him know exactly what you think of everything. He's going to take it all in for sure. Do you think if they bought tables from old Zen Pinball games, they should carry over to other newer game versions? I bought lots of Zen Pinball 2 tables, but I switched to PS4 from Xbox 360 and had none. Forrest Tekken Videos. This is a... we're going to move away from physical, like that's happening, right? And this cuts to the heart of what the video game industry really needs to reconcile with as we move into this all-digital future, which is inevitable. I think a lot of those concerns about losing stuff when you transfer from generation to generation will become moot when we're all paying $10 a month and we have access to an endless library of titles, because it will just carry over with whatever hardware is serving us that information. But before we get to that, yes, I do think that companies need to have digital purchase solutions that let you migrate software from platform to platform. And I think that might be something that starts to get introduced over the next couple of years. I wish Nintendo had done that with access to a lot of its eShop stuff and a lot of its virtual console stuff, from the Wii to the Wii U. I think there was a little bit of that, but I feel like that should have been the case with the Switch. They have kind of sidestepped that a little bit by the allowing people to play. If you sign up for the Nintendo online accounts, you can play the NES software, and the Super Nintendo software is part of that. But, you know, I'm sure there are lots of you, like I did, that bought tons of games for the Wii and my 3DS and my Wii U, which exist on those platforms, but I have no access to them on the Switch, and I really wish that I did. And I feel like going forward, and, you know, I think Xbox is doing a pretty damn good job at that, where they let you access your archive from even the Xbox days, the original Xbox days, and play them on new machines, which I think is great. Vic, do you remember the RTS Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds? If so, do you remember what you and Tommy thought of it? I do remember the RTS, Nintendo Boy 17. I get it confused because there were a few RTS games that is set in the Star Wars universe. I can't remember which one I liked the most, but there was one really good one. I can't remember what the title of that is. But so I can't remember those scores for sure. Dave McKee, I am happy that VC does not exist on Switch. If it did, people would do nothing but buy old games, and we would have diminished new games and ports. I don't know, Dave. I think that I think it's important to be able to access, you know, formational software, stuff that kind of set the tone for future generations of game makers to borrow from to create new ideas. And I think that. You know, I work with the school quite often, and it's always surprising to me that people have never heard of Eugene Jarvis or Robotron or Smash TV, and they are making a twin-stick shooter. And I think access to that archive, those older games, is incredibly important. And the absence of access to that software leads people to pirate that software. And I would much rather that the companies have a plan in place that lets people own access to this content across whatever generation of hardware they're going to be playing this stuff on, so that it doesn't get lost and doesn't become this this thing that just exists on Russian servers or something. You know what I mean? And it's good to recognize that innovation and awesome game concepts can exist in the absence of, you know, brand new and super fast technology. That's encouraging, and that's inspiring to people that want to go off and be independent developers. I just reviewed the Tourist on Nintendo Switch, and it's a pretty sleek-looking piece of code. For sure, it's made by Shinin, but it's also got a lot of simple ideas that are you know, tuned and work really, really well. Plus, built within the game, and this is something I always love, you can walk into an arcade in the world and play little arcade games on those little arcade machines, and I love that kind of stuff. And they all sort of tip their hat to classic arcade experiences.
Star Wars Pinball, The Last Jedi.
I see your point, Vic, but not at this time, near the end of the console, not at the start. I don't think that the purchase of classic stuff eclipses the desire for the new. I just think that it's important for the classic stuff to be available. Like, it really drives me crazy, and I'll take one more question after this. It really drives me crazy that Midway was purchased by Warner Brothers, and then all of Midway's classic games like Joust and Robotron and Defender and Stargate and tons of other ones, Spy Hunter, they've been sitting there completely dormant. And now there are lots of new machines that, unless you dig into you can't even get those games on Switch, but unless you dig into the stores, I think on Xbox you can get that stuff. On Steam you can get some of that stuff, but you got to know it and you got to search for it. There's no way to have that ever available to you. It's just a crying shame because, you know, Midway, you know, through the 80s and 90s was one of the most innovative game makers on earth, and that stuff should always be available to people. It's like having a Spotify account and like the Prince library is not available to you, you know? Like, there's some seminal work that is current no matter when you access it. All right.
Sorry, I have no idea what I just did.
That's okay.
Transport is ready to go.
Nuke China has one last comment that we're going to give right here. If I ran the Game Awards, I wouldn't let anything be shown that wasn't real gameplay. That is a good comment, and you should, if you've got comments for Jeff, I know he welcomes them. So just tweet at him. He's reading through all of that stuff. You know, like we work really hard creating regular content on a kind of weekly basis or as close to daily basis as we can do. Jeff works all year to make those awards, and he cares deeply about them, and he wants to have people be very, very happy with them. So if you've got thoughts for him, I know he would love to read them. Okay, that is going to do it for us today and for this year for EP Live. Thank you all so much for your support and for watching and for subscribing and for sharing and for liking our vids and for commenting and for coming up and Let's Playing with me. We have got the Rocket and Raygun starting next week, so please come back and check all of those out. Let us know what you think of them and all the games that we should have awarded the Rocket and Rayguns to. We're going to take a holiday break. We'll be back in the new year with some new content for you in January, and then EP Live is going to return on a regular schedule in February next week. But don't fear. There's going to be a lot of content on EPN coming up very quickly for you, and definitely want you guys to watch all of the Rocket and Raygun Awards. Let's all keep our fingers crossed that the new Star Wars movie kicks ass. Yes? We all hope so. Blake has got the thumbs down and the unhappy face, as we expect. But hopefully Rise of Skywalker is awesome. At least we have the Mandalorian, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you, next week, but we'll see you again in 2020. Have an awesome holiday season. And make sure that you spend time with your family and all your loved ones, but also you play forever.